Have you ever looked at someone your own age and wondered how they seem so light? Not happier necessarily, not even more successful, just lighter, as though they're carrying something you aren't, or perhaps as though they aren't carrying something you are carrying. You catch yourself scrolling past their photos or hearing them laugh in a group chat, and you wonder, how can two people stand at roughly the same point in life, yet move through it so differently? You begin looking for an obvious explanation. Maybe they've simply had it easier. Maybe they're naturally optimistic. Maybe they're just better at hiding what they're going through. Those explanations seem reasonable, until you remember people you've known for years. People who have faced disappointments, lost opportunities, and seasons that would have changed anyone. Yet they still carry a certain lightness about them. Not all the time, of course. Nobody does. But often enough that you can't help noticing. Meanwhile, you wake up tired in a way that sleep doesn't always fix. Your body is still young, yet something inside you feels older, not weaker, not slower. Just as though life has been asking something of you for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like not to carry it. It's difficult to point to the exact moment it happened. There wasn't a particular morning when you opened your eyes and thought, "Today, I feel 10 years older." If anything, the change was almost impossible to notice while it was happening. One year blended into the next, responsibilities multiplied quietly, and the things that once felt temporary slowly became permanent fixtures of everyday life. You adapted, because that's what people do. You figured things out, learned from your mistakes, became more dependable, more capable, better at thinking ahead, and better at solving problems before they even appeared. From the outside, those all look like signs of growth. And they are. But growth has an interesting habit of asking for something in return. Every responsibility occupies a little space in your mind. Every promise needs remembering. Every decision branches into 3 more decisions. And every mistake leaves behind a lesson that quietly whispers, "Don't let that happen again." None of these things feel especially heavy on their own. The strange part is what happens when they never really leave. Imagine setting a single book on a table. It's almost weightless. Now, add another, then another. Eventually, the table begins carrying a small library. No single book caused the strain. It was everything added together. The mind works in much the same way. It doesn't only carry today's responsibilities, it carries unfinished conversations. The decision you still aren't sure you made correctly, the bill that's due next week, the message you forgot to reply to, the expectation you've placed on yourself, and even the expectation someone else placed on you years ago, that somehow never stopped echoing. Little by little, your attention becomes occupied before the day has even begun. You don't wake up into the present anymore. You wake up into everything waiting for you. Perhaps that's why some mornings feel exhausting before you've done a single thing. Not because your body is tired, but because your mind started running long before your feet touched the floor. And when your mind becomes used to operating this way, it begins to change the way you move through life. You become more focused on managing than experiencing. You still enjoy things. You still laugh. You still have moments where you feel completely present. But somewhere underneath those moments, there is often another part of your mind already thinking ahead. A holiday is not only a holiday anymore. Part of you is thinking about the money spent, what needs to be done when you return, and whether you are using your time wisely. A free evening is not always just a free evening. Part of you is thinking about the things you should probably be doing. A new opportunity is not only exciting. Part of you is already calculating the effort, the risks, and the possibility that it may not work out. This is one of the reasons people begin feeling older than their age. Not because they have lost their ability to enjoy life, but because life starts requiring more mental processing. Everything begins arriving with additional questions attached. Is this the right choice? Will this be worth it? What happens next? The mind that once moved toward things simply because they were interesting begins looking for certainty before moving. And that change is subtle, because on the outside it can look like maturity. It can look like you are more careful, more responsible, or even more thoughtful. But internally, something else may be happening. The part of you that used to explore without needing every answer first becomes quieter. The part that used to try something just because it was fun starts asking whether it has a purpose. And slowly, life can begin feeling less like something you participate in and more like something you are constantly managing. But this does not happen to everyone in the same way. There are people who wake up and still feel a sense of possibility about the day ahead. Not because their life is perfect, and not because they have nothing to worry about. They have worries too. They have unfinished tasks, difficult decisions, and moments where life feels uncertain. But those things have not completely changed the way they look at life. They can still become interested in something without immediately asking whether it is useful. They can still make plans because something excites them, not only because it is the most logical choice. They can still experience a simple moment without needing to measure its value or think about what should happen next. That difference may seem small, but over time, it creates a completely different experience of life. Because curiosity is one of the first things that disappears when every decision has to be practical. When your mind becomes used to searching for certainty, it naturally begins avoiding things that feel unpredictable. You become less likely to try something simply because it interests you. You become less willing to follow an idea that has no clear outcome. Even things that once brought excitement can start feeling like distractions because they do not immediately contribute to a goal. That is why you can look at someone your age and feel like they are experiencing the same life differently. They are not necessarily carrying fewer responsibilities. They are also not living without uncertainty. The difference is that not every moment has become something they need to evaluate, control, or prepare for. They can work toward the future without constantly leaving the present behind. They can take something seriously without allowing it to consume everything else. A difficult season can remain a difficult season, rather than becoming the way they see all of life. This is something many people lose without realizing it. They become so focused on becoming better, building something, avoiding mistakes, and making the right choices that they slowly forget another part of being human. The ability to simply be involved in life, to enjoy a conversation without thinking about where the relationship is going, to learn something without immediately asking how it can be useful, to spend an afternoon doing something meaningless and still feel that the time mattered. Because not everything valuable has to produce a result. Not every experience has to move you closer to a goal, and not every decision has to be the perfect decision. The people who seem lighter often understand this naturally. They still plan, they still work hard, and they still care about their future. However, they leave room for things that do not need to be justified. They allow themselves moments of curiosity, moments of play, and even moments where they are not measuring whether they are falling behind or making progress. Those moments remind the mind that life is not only a series of problems waiting to be solved. Life is also a place where things can be discovered, where unexpected moments can happen, and where you can change direction, try something new, or enjoy something simply because it brings you joy. The goal is not to become careless again, and it is not to ignore everything you have learned. Because the wisdom you gained matters. Even the experiences that changed you matter. The goal is learning how to carry those experiences without allowing them to become the only lens through which you see life. Because the same lessons that make you wiser can also make you more cautious, more controlled, and less willing to step into moments that do not come with certainty. And when too much of life becomes about managing outcomes, avoiding mistakes, and staying prepared, it becomes easier to understand why you can feel older than your age.